She was just a maid's daughter selling her sidewalk drawings, racing to fund her mother's chemo, until a billionaire walked by and changed her life in front of everyone. A 12-year-old girl holds a pencil. It is the only weapon she has. Her mother, a maid, is fighting for her life, and the one treatment that works has been denied by insurance. The cost to save her is $70,000, an impossible sum. They don't have anything. As her mother sinks into despair, the girl takes her drawings, a wobbly table, and a handmade sign. She sets up on a busy city sidewalk, facing humiliation and indifference in a desperate, impossible gamble. She is one child against a debt that could swallow them whole, and she has no idea who is about to walk by. And before I forget, I always love knowing where you're all watching from. Leave a comment below. And with that, let's get to the story. She sat on a metal stool, her drawings laid out on a dusty sidewalk. She was not just selling art. She was fighting for her mother's life. And she had no idea that a single man walking by would change everything. The smell hit Emily first. It was the smell of bleach and something else. Something metallic and sad. She sat on a hard plastic chair in the hospital hallway. Her short blonde hair was tucked behind her ears. She kicked her sneakers against the polished floor, making a quiet, squeaking sound. It was the only sound she could control. Inside the room, her mother, Susan, was talking to the doctor. Emily was not allowed in for this part. Adult talk, her mom had called it, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Emily hated that smile. It was the bravest, saddest smile in the world. She looked at the walls. They were painted a pale, sick green, the color of vegetables she refused to eat. She wondered if they painted hospitals this color to make people feel calm. It did not work. The door opened. Dr. Evans stepped out. He was a kind man with tired eyes and a gray mustache. He looked at Emily and tried to smile, but his mustache just twitched. Susan walked out behind him. Her face was white. "Emily, honey," Susan said. Her voice was thin, like a thread about to snap. "Is it working?" Emily asked. She stood up too fast. The blood rushed from her head. Dr. Evans cleared his throat. "Susan, maybe we should." "No," Susan said. She put a hand on Emily's shoulder. Her hand was trembling. "She needs to hear it. She's part of this." Dr. Evans sighed. He knelt, which always made Emily uncomfortable. He was a grown-up, and he was trying to look small. "Emily, the new treatment is showing some good signs. The tumors, they are shrinking. Just a little. But it's a good sign." Emily felt a tiny spark of hope. "So it's working. She's getting better." Susan's fingers tightened on her shoulder. "It is working," Dr. Evans said gently. "But it's a very aggressive treatment. And it is very, very expensive. We need to continue it. We cannot stop." "We won't stop," Emily said, looking at her mom. "We'll do it." Susan finally looked at her daughter. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. "Dr. Evans," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, tell her." Dr. Evans stood up. He looked tired again. "The insurance company, they have refused to cover this new round. They are calling it experimental. We are appealing, of course, but the appeal process takes weeks. Months, sometimes. We do not have months." Emily's stomach turned cold. "What does that mean?" "What do you mean, refused?" "It means," Susan said, her voice suddenly flat, "that we have to pay for it ourselves, if we want the medicine to continue." "How much?" Emily asked. It was a small, childish question, like asking the price of a candy bar. Dr. Evans looked away. He studied a chart on the wall as if it held a great secret. "The next round of infusions, out of pocket, will be $70,000. Emily just stared. 70,000. She had $3.50 in the piggy bank on her dresser. Her mother was a maid. She cleaned big, empty houses for people who had summer homes. They lived in a small, two-bedroom apartment above a bakery. They did not have $70,000. They did not have $700. "There are options," Dr. Evans was saying. He was talking to her mother now. "Payment plans. Hospital charity. We can look into." "Thank you, doctor," Susan said. She cut him off, but her voice was polite. It was the same voice she used when her boss asked her to scrub the floors again. We will figure it out." "Susan, please," the doctor said. "Be realistic. The financial office." "I said I will figure it out." Susan grabbed Emily's hand. Her palm was cold and damp. She walked them down the long, green hallway. She walked past the nurse's station. She walked past the elevators. She pushed the button for the stairs. They walked down 4 flights of stairs. Their footsteps echoed in the concrete well. Clack, clack, clack. Emily did not say a word. She just held on to her mother's hand. The drive home was worse than the stairs. Their car was a 10-year-old blue sedan. The engine made a rattling sound. Usually, Emily and her mom would sing along to the radio. They would make up silly words to the songs. Today, there was only silence. Susan stared straight ahead. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles were white. Emily watched the city go by. She saw people walking on the sidewalk. A man in a suit, talking on his phone. A woman laughing, carrying shopping bags. A boy her age, riding a skateboard. They all looked so normal. Their worlds had not just ended. Emily felt a hot, angry tear slide down her cheek. She wiped it away fast. She did not want her mom to see. It was not fair. Her mother was a good person. She worked hard. She never complained. She always helped the elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, with her groceries. Why did this happen to her? It's going to be okay, baby, Susan said. Her voice was rough. Emily knew it was a lie. It was the lie grown-ups told when things were so bad. The truth was too heavy to say out loud. How? Emily asked. She hated how small her voice sounded. Where are we going to get that much money? Susan turned the corner onto their street. She pulled into their parking spot behind the building. She turned off the engine. The rattling stopped. The silence was heavy. I don't know, Susan whispered. She finally turned to look at Emily. Her face was a mask of exhaustion. I will sell the car. I will ask my boss for an advance. I will take a second mortgage on nothing. She laughed, but it was a broken sound. We don't own anything. I can quit school, Emily said. I can get a job. I can babysit. Susan's sad face hardened. No, she said it with a final, terrible sharpness. You will never, ever say that again. You are a child. You will go to school. You will get good grades. You will get out of this. You will not be me. I want to be you. Emily cried. You're brave. I'm tired, Susan said. And I'm scared. Now come on. We have to make dinner. Dinner was macaroni and cheese from a box. It tasted like ash. Susan went to her bedroom right after. She closed the door. Emily did not hear crying. She heard nothing. That was worse. Emily sat on the lumpy sofa in their small living room. She looked around. The furniture was old. The rug was faded. But on the mantel, there was one thing that was not old or faded. It was a photograph in a simple silver frame. It was a black and white photo of a young woman. She had a bright, fearless smile. She wore a strange-looking leather cap with goggles. A flight suit was bunched around her waist. She was leaning against the wing of an old airplane. This was Eliza Grant, her great-grandmother. Emily had never met her. She had died long before Emily was born. But her mother told her the stories. Eliza was a firecracker, Susan would say, her eyes distant. She grew up on a farm. They told her girls couldn't fly. This was back in the war. The big one. They needed pilots. They needed them bad. But they still told the women no. Emily knew the rest by heart. She didn't listen. Emily would whisper. She never listened, Susan would answer, smiling. She joined the WASP, the Women Air Force Service pilots. She flew the biggest, baddest planes they had. Bombers. Fighters. She flew them from the factories to the air bases. No guns, no protection. Just her and the sky. She was a hero, Emily. Don't you ever forget it. Our family, we come from strong women. Emily looked at the photo. Eliza's smile seemed to dare the world to stop her. She wouldn't quit. Emily felt something shift inside her. The cold fear was still there. But now, it had something hot next to it. Anger and determination. Her mother was wrong. This was not just her mother's fight. Emily walked to her bedroom. It was tiny. Her desk was crammed in a corner. On it was a stack of paper and a box of pencils. Not crayons. Pencils. Special artist pencils, with different numbers for different shades. They had been her big Christmas present. Emily pulled out her sketchbook. She was not just a C student. She was not just a maid's daughter. She was an artist. Her teacher, Ms. Pine, had said so. Emily, your work has life. You see things. She flipped through the pages. A drawing of their cat. Whiskers, so detailed you could almost feel the fur. A drawing of the old oak tree in the park. A portrait of Mrs. Gable, her wrinkles like a map. It was the only thing she was ever really good at. She looked back at the photo of Eliza. She flew planes. I can draw. It was a small, quiet thought. I can draw. And I can sell them. It was a crazy idea. Who would buy drawings from a 12-year-old girl on the street? They told her girls couldn't fly. Emily grabbed a fresh piece of paper. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. Not anymore. She looked at the photo of Eliza. She began to draw. She drew the fierce eyes, the confident smile, the old-fashioned goggles. She drew the propeller of the plane behind her. She worked for hours. The moon rose outside her window. The smell of the bakery downstairs, fresh bread for the morning, filled the air. When she was done, it was the best thing she had ever drawn. She pulled out another piece of paper. And another. She drew the oak tree from the park. She drew the skyline of the city from her window. She drew her mother's hands, the ones that were so tired, resting on the kitchen table. By morning, she had 10 drawings. She found an old, folding card table in the back of the closet. It was wobbly. She found a big piece of cardboard from a box. She took a thick black marker. She paused. What should she write? Art for sale? No, that wasn't the truth. Not the whole truth. She wrote, drawings for my mom's chemo. Underneath, in smaller letters, she wrote, anything helps. Thank you. She crept into the hallway. Her mother's bedroom door was still closed. Emily took a deep breath. She grabbed the wobbly table, her portfolio of drawings, and the sign. She found her old metal stool. She walked out of the apartment building. The sun was just coming up. The city was waking up. She walked 2 blocks to the busiest street, the one with the big office buildings and the fancy coffee shops. She found an empty patch of sidewalk. She set up the wobbly table. She carefully laid out her 10 drawings. She propped up her sign. A 12-year-old girl sat on a metal stool, her drawings laid out on a dusty sidewalk. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She felt sick. She felt stupid. Everyone was going to laugh. A man in a suit walked by. He glanced at her sign. He looked away, his pace quickening. A woman with a yoga mat stared at her. She had a look of pity on her face. Emily hated that look. Emily put her hands in her lap. She made them into fists. They told her girls couldn't fly. She did it anyway. Okay, great-grandma. Emily whispered to the air. Here we go. The morning rush was a blur of legs and briefcases. People hurried by, their faces pointed toward the tall glass buildings. They were lost in their own worlds. They talked on phones. They sipped from paper coffee cups. Emily felt like a small, gray rock in the middle of a fast-moving river. No one looked at her. Worse, some people did look. They would see her, then see the sign. Their faces would pinch. It was that look again. The pity look. Then they would look away, walking faster. Emily's face burned. She wanted to pack up her wobbly table and run. What was I thinking? This is stupid. I'm just a kid. This is a kid's idea. She looked at her drawing of the oak tree. She had worked so hard on the bark, making it look rough and old. She thought it was good. A man in a sharp, gray suit paused. He was talking loudly into a phone. No, you tell them the margin is non-negotiable. I don't care what they. He glanced down. His eyes scanned her table. He stopped talking. He looked at her sign. Drawings for my mom's chemo. He frowned. He reached into his pocket, still holding the phone to his ear. He pulled out a crumpled $5 bill and tossed it onto her table. Good luck, kid, he mumbled, and then he was walking again. Listen, Jerry, I'm back. Now about that. Emily stared at the $5. It was money. It was $5 more than she had before. But he hadn't even looked at her drawings. He hadn't bought anything. He had just tossed it, like she was a beggar. She carefully picked up the bill and folded it. She put it in the pocket of her jeans. It's okay, she told herself. It's for Mom. It doesn't matter how, but it did matter. She wanted to earn it, like Eliza earned her wings. An hour passed. The sun climbed higher. The concrete sidewalk started to feel warm. A woman with a bright red purse and matching shoes stopped. She looked very elegant. She leaned in to look at the drawings, and Emily's heart gave a little leap. Oh, these are quite sweet, the woman said. Her voice was high and thin. Thank you, Emily said. Her voice was a squeak. I drew them all. This one, the woman said, pointing to the drawing of the cat, Whiskers. It looks just like my little Sebastian. You can have it, Emily said, her words tumbling out. I'm selling them. For my mom. She's. Yes, the sign, the woman said, waving a hand. How much for this one? Emily's mind went blank. She hadn't thought about prices. How much was a drawing worth? How much was her mom's medicine worth? $20? She stammered. It sounded like $1,000,000. The woman's smile tightened. $20? For a pencil drawing? From a child? She let out a little laugh. Oh, honey, that's a bit much, don't you think? Emily's face went hot. I'm sorry. 10. Is 10 okay? The woman sighed, her elegant face full of disappointment. I thought you were just, collecting. Here. She opened her red purse. She pulled out a $1 bill. You're a brave girl, helping your mother. But you can't really expect people to buy these. She placed the dollar bill on the table and walked away. Emily stared at the dollar. It felt heavier than the 5. You can't really expect people to buy these. The words echoed in her head. She looked at her drawing of her mother's hands. She had spent an hour just on the fingernails, the little lines on the knuckles. She felt a tear roll down her cheek. She wiped it away, angry. She was not brave. She was a joke. You can't be here. Emily looked up. A man in a blue uniform was standing over her. He had a thick mustache and a shiny badge that said security. He was pointing at her table. I'm just sitting here, Emily said. This is private property, the man said, hooking his thumbs into his belt. This sidewalk belongs to the building. We don't allow soliciting. I'm not soliciting, Emily said. I'm selling my art. The man looked at her table. He looked at her sign. He sighed. It was a long, tired sound. Look, kid, I don't know what your story is. And frankly, I don't care. You're blocking traffic. People are complaining. No, they're not. No one's even. Pack it up, he said. His voice was flat. Or I'll have to take your table. But I can't. I need to. I'm not going to tell you again. Go on. Get out of here. Tears streamed down Emily's face now. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just broken. She nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. Her hands shook as she gathered her drawings. She was careful not to smudge them. She put them back in her portfolio. She folded the wobbly legs of the card table. She picked up her metal stool. The security guard watched her. He didn't look mean. He just looked bored. Emily turned. She clutched the table to her chest. She had $6 in her pocket. $6. It was a joke. She walked the 2 blocks home. The city seemed louder now. The car seemed angrier. She had failed. When she got to the apartment, the door was unlocked. She pushed it open. The apartment was quiet. Mom. Susan was sitting at the small kitchen table. She was not in her maid uniform. She was still in her bathrobe. Her hair was messy. There was a pile of papers on the table in front of her. Bills. Envelopes with red letters. She looked up when Emily came in. Her eyes were red. Where were you? Susan asked. Her voice was dull. I woke up. You were gone. I called the school. They said you never. Where were you, Emily? Emily couldn't hold it in. She dropped the table. It clattered on the linoleum floor. She ran to her mother and buried her face in her bathrobe. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I was trying to help. I took my drawings. I made a sign. I was trying to sell them. For the medicine. I was trying, Mom, but he made me leave. She cried. She told her everything. The man with the $5. The lady with the $1. The security guard. Susan held her. She just held her daughter's shaking body. She stroked her blonde hair. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Emily's sobs slowly turned into quiet hiccups. Oh, baby, Susan whispered. She kissed the top of Emily's head. My brave, brave girl. My Eliza. Emily pulled back, wiping her nose. He said I was soliciting. The lady said no one would buy them. She said I couldn't expect people to. Susan's face changed. The sadness was still there. But the dull, tired look was gone. Something hard had replaced it. It was the look in Eliza Grant's eyes in the photograph. That woman, Susan said, her voice low and fierce. She's wrong. Your drawings are beautiful. You hear me? They are. They're the most beautiful things in the world. Because they're yours. But I only made $6, Emily whispered. It's not enough. It's nothing. It's not nothing, Susan said. She took Emily's face in her hands. Her palms were warm now. It's $6 you earned. You did something. You fought back. I just sat here. I sat here and looked at these papers. I was quitting. No, Mom. I was, Susan insisted. I was. And then you came in. You went out there all by yourself. You faced them. Just like Eliza. Susan stood up. She walked to the mantel. She picked up the silver-framed photo of her grandmother. They told her she couldn't fly, Susan said, her voice shaking with a new kind of energy. They told her the planes were too big for a little girl. They told her to go home and knit socks for the soldiers. You know what she did? She flew anyway, Emily whispered. She flew anyway, Susan agreed. She flew a B-26 bomber. They called it the Widowmaker. Men were afraid of that plane, and my grandmother flew it across the country. And she didn't quit. Susan put the photo back. She turned to Emily. So we don't quit. That security guard? He's right. It's private property. But the sidewalk, she said, a small, fierce smile playing on her lips. The city sidewalk, that's public property. He can't kick you off the public sidewalk. Emily blinked. What? Tomorrow, Susan said. She grabbed Emily's hands. We're going back. But not to that spot. We're going to the park. By the big fountain. There's no building. No private security. Just people. But what if they're mean again? Then they're mean, Susan said. We don't care about them. We're fighting for us. You and me. We're Eliza's girls. Right. Emily looked at her mom. She wasn't pale anymore. Her eyes were shining. Emily nodded. A small smile, a real one, touched her own lips. Right. Eliza's girls. Good. Now, Susan said, letting go of her hands. Let's count that $6. And then, I want you to show me every single one of those drawings. And I want you to tell me the price for each. $20? Emily asked shyly. Susan laughed. It was a real laugh. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. Honey, she said, for your work? We're starting at 50. The next morning felt different. The sun was bright, not harsh. The air from the bakery downstairs smelled like sweet rolls, not just bread. Emily and Susan carried the wobbly table and the metal stool together. Susan also carried a folded beach blanket and a small cooler with 2 bottles of water. She was wearing jeans and her favorite yellow sweater. She looked like a mom, not a patient. They walked to the public park, 4 blocks away. It was already busy. Joggers ran on the paths. An old man sat on a bench, feeding pigeons. Near the big central fountain, a man was playing a guitar. Here, Susan said, pointing, right by the main path, where everyone can see. They set up the table on the grass, just off the sidewalk. Susan spread the beach blanket next to it. Okay, Susan said. She pulled a new sign from her bag. She had made it last night. She had used Emily's good paper and her black marker. The letters were big and clear. Original artwork. All proceeds for mother's medical bills. Underneath, in smaller, neat letters, she wrote, "Thank you for supporting our family." It looked professional. It looked strong. What about the chemo part? Emily asked. This says everything it needs to, Susan said. We are not begging. We are offering something valuable for sale. Right, right, Emily said, her shoulders straightening. Susan sat on the blanket. Emily sat on her stool. You're the artist, Susan said, her voice quiet and steady. If people ask questions about the drawings, you answer. You tell them what you were thinking. I'll handle the money. Emily nodded. She arranged her drawings. The 10 from yesterday, plus 2 new ones she had stayed up late to finish. One was of the fountain. The other was a small, simple drawing of her mother's face. She put that one in the very back. It felt too personal. For the first 20 minutes, no one stopped. But it was different from yesterday. No one looked at them with pity. They just glanced, saw art for sale, and walked on. It was normal. Then, an older couple, walking hand in hand, slowed down. Oh my, the woman said. She had kind, crinkled eyes. She pointed at the drawing of Whiskers, the cat. George, look. He looks just like Muffin, when he was a kitten. He does, at that, the man George said. Emily's heart did its little leap. That's my cat, Whiskers, Emily said. He likes to sleep in the sun. It's just lovely, the woman said. She looked at the sign. Her smile softened. How much are you asking for this one, dear? Emily looked at Susan. Susan smiled. That one is $50. The woman didn't laugh. She didn't look disappointed. She just nodded. She opened her purse. It's a beautiful drawing. You have a real gift, young lady. George handed Susan 2 $20 bills and 1 $10. Thank you, Emily said. She felt dizzy. Thank you so much. You keep fighting, the woman said softly, touching Emily's arm. She took the drawing carefully. You both keep fighting. When they left, Emily looked at the $50 in her mother's hand. Mom, she whispered. See, Susan said, her voice thick. She folded the money and put it in a metal box she had brought. One down. The day went on. A college student bought the drawing of the oak tree for $30. It'll look great over my desk, he said. A young woman in jogging clothes stopped. She looked at the drawing of the skyline. I run here every morning. This is exactly what it looks like. This is, wow. She bought it for $50. By lunchtime, they had sold 4 drawings. They had $180. It was more money than Emily had ever seen in one place. It was a miracle. She and Susan ate the sandwiches they had packed. They drank their water. We're doing it, Mom, Emily said. She felt like she could fly. We're doing it, Susan said, smiling. But Emily saw her look at the money in the box. She saw her mother's eyes do the math. $180. They needed $70,000. Emily's joy faded. It was like the sun going behind a cloud. This was not enough. It would never be enough. They would have to sit here every day, for all of her life, to get that much money. Susan saw the look on her face. Hey, she said, nudging her. We don't quit. We just sold 4 drawings. That's a victory. It's not enough, Emily whispered. It's a start, Susan said fiercely. We start. We keep starting. We do not stop. Emily took a deep breath. She nodded. She looked back at the table. She watched the people walk by. The park was quieter now, in the middle of the day. The guitar player had packed up. A man was walking slowly on the path. He was older, maybe as old as her grandfather would have been. He had thick, white hair and a kind, lived-in face. He wore simple tan pants and a plain blue shirt. He looked nice. He looked normal. He was not on the phone. He was not rushing. He was just walking. He stopped near their table. He didn't look at Emily or Susan. He looked at the drawings. Emily held her breath. He looked at each one. His hands were clasped behind his back. He leaned in to see the details on the fountain. He looked at the portrait of Mrs. Gable, the neighbor. Then, his eyes settled on the drawing in the center. The drawing of Eliza Grant. He stared at it for a long time. So long that Emily started to feel nervous. He pointed a finger at it. The finger was tan, with a simple gold wedding band. Who is this? He asked. His voice was quiet, but it was deep. It was a voice that people listened to. Emily's mouth was dry. That's my great-grandmother, she said. The man turned his head. He looked at Emily for the first time. His eyes were a very clear, sharp blue. They were not tired eyes. They were interested. Your great-grandmother? He said. She was a pilot? Yes, sir, Emily said. She felt a little braver. She was a wasp. During the war. Her name was Eliza Grant. The man's eyebrows went up. A wasp, he said, more to himself than to her. He looked back at the drawing. You drew this? Yes, sir. From an old photo we have. It's very good, he said. He said it simply. Not like the woman yesterday, sweet. Or the couple today, lovely. He said it like it was a fact. Like saying the sky is blue. You captured her, spirit, the man said. That's hard to do. That's not just copying. That's seeing. He looked at the sign. All proceeds for mother's medical bills. He looked at Susan, sitting on the blanket. Susan met his gaze. She did not look away. She did not look sick. She just looked proud. The man looked back at Emily. My name is David, he said, and I would like to buy this drawing. Okay, Emily said. Her heart was beating fast. That one is $50. $50, David repeated. He nodded slowly. I see. He reached into his pocket. He did not pull out a wallet. He pulled out a checkbook. Emily's eyes went wide. A checkbook. Susan stood up. She walked to the table. Sir, I'm not sure we can take a check. David paused. He looked at Susan. It's a good check, I assure you. It's not that, Susan said, blushing. It's just for a bank. I understand, he said. He smiled. It was a small, kind smile. My apologies. He tucked the checkbook back in. It seems I don't have that much cash on me. Do you mind if I walk to the bank? It's just a few blocks. I would very much like to have this. And I'd like to talk to you. About Eliza Grant. You would? Emily asked. Very much, David said. I'll be right back. Please, don't sell this one. He pointed again at Eliza's portrait. We won't, Emily promised. The man, David, nodded. He turned and walked away. He walked briskly, with purpose. Wow, Emily said. He was nice. He was, Susan said. She was frowning, watching him go. What's wrong? I don't know, Susan said. He seemed familiar. He looked like a grandpa, Emily said. No, not like that, Susan said. I feel like I've seen him before. On the news, or something. Oh well. She sat back down. He's coming back. That's another $50. Emily sat down. She looked at the drawing of Eliza. She had captured her spirit, he'd said. She felt a glow of pride that had nothing to do with the money. He had seen it. They waited. 10 minutes went by. 15. What if he doesn't come back? Emily said. He'll be back, Susan said. And then he was. He was walking back. He was still alone. He was carrying a small, plain white envelope. He walked right up to the table. Hello again, he said, smiling at Emily. Hi, Emily said. I have the $50, he said. He held out the envelope. But I had a thought on my walk. I'd like to make you a different offer. Susan stood up again. She stood next to Emily. An offer? Yes, David said. He looked at the drawing still on the table. The one of Mrs. Gable. The one of her mother's hands. The one of the fountain. You are very, very talented, Emily, he said. This drawing of your great-grandmother is special. But these show you understand people. You understand light. He looked at Susan. You have the sign. For medical bills. It's for you, I take it. Susan lifted her chin. Yes. I'm sick. I need a treatment. The insurance won't pay. David nodded. He had not asked. But she had told him. I thought so, he said. It's a terrible thing. A terrible, common thing. He held up the envelope. In this envelope is $500. Emily gasped. It's for the drawing, David said quickly. For the one of Eliza. I believe it's worth that. Susan's hand went to her mouth. Sir? We can't. That's too much. No, David said. His voice was gentle, but firm. It is not. It is what I am offering. But I'd like to add a condition. Emily's stomach dropped. A condition? What condition? Susan asked. Her voice was suspicious. David looked at the drawing of Susan's face. The one Emily had hidden in the back. I'd like to commission a new piece, David said. I'd like you to draw a portrait. Of your mother. Emily stared at him. Of my mom. Yes. A new one. One where she is not sitting on a blanket in a park, worried about money. One where she looks like the mother of a great artist. I will pay you for that commission. We don't need. Susan started. Please, David said. He held her gaze. Let me do this. I'm a collector. Of art. And of stories. And I think yours is a very important one. He looked at Emily. I have a check in my pocket. I brought it just in case. It's for a lot. He looked back at Susan. It's for the full amount. Susan's knees seemed to buckle. What? The full amount, David said, his voice very quiet. $70,000. Emily's world stopped. She heard the fountain. She heard the pigeons. She heard her own heart. You what? Susan whispered. She was holding onto the table. Who are you? The man, David, gave a small, sad smile. My name is David Harrison. My wife, she died 5 years ago. From the same thing. We had all the money in the world. It bought us 3 extra months. It was the best 3 months of my life. He looked at Emily. His blue eyes were shining. I run a foundation, Ms. Grant, he said to Susan. No, Susan. We find people who are falling through the cracks. People the insurance companies have refused. His voice was bitter. We help them. It's what my wife, Mary, wanted. Susan was openly crying now. Silent tears rolling down her face. 70,000. Yes, David Harrison said. It's for the commission. For the portrait of your mother. I am paying you in advance. Emily found her voice. It was a tiny whisper. But, a drawing isn't worth that much. Mr. Harrison knelt. He was a grown-up, kneeling, but it didn't feel wrong. He was not trying to be small. He was trying to be close. Emily, he said, your talent is worth that. Your mother's life is worth that. And the look in your great-grandmother's eyes, the one you captured, that is worth everything. He stood up. He pulled the checkbook out again. He opened it on her wobbly table. He took out a pen. This is not charity, he said, as he started to write. This is a contract. You will draw me that portrait. And your mother, she will get her medicine. He tore the check from the book. He folded it. He placed it in Susan's hand. Susan stared at it. She couldn't speak. And, Mr. Harrison said, I am still taking this one. He handed Emily the white envelope. The $500. For Eliza. That's for you. Not for the bills. He carefully picked up the drawing of the wasp pilot. You too. You are Eliza's girls, he said. Susan looked up, her face a mask of disbelief. How did you? You told me, he smiled. When you said, we don't quit. I heard it. He tucked the drawing under his arm. My office will be in touch tomorrow to arrange everything with the hospital. You two go home. Have dinner. He turned. And just like that, the man with the white hair and the plain blue shirt, the billionaire, walked away. Emily and her mother stood by the fountain. The money box had $180 in it. The envelope in Emily's hand had $500. And the check in Susan's hand. It was everything. Emily started to cry. But this time, it was not from fear. It was not from sadness. It was from a wave of relief so big, it washed the whole world clean. Mom, she whispered, grabbing her hand. Susan pulled her daughter into a fierce hug. She held her so tight, Emily could barely breathe. He's right, Susan whispered into her hair. We go home. We have dinner. They packed up the wobbly table. Emily folded her metal stool. Susan carefully put the check into the zipper pocket of her jeans. She put the metal box with the $180 inside her bag. Emily clutched the white envelope with the $500. It was warm from her hand. They walked out of the park. The fountain was still splashing. The pigeons were still cooing. The world was exactly the same. And everything was different. They walked the 4 blocks home in silence. It was not a bad silence. It was a stunned silence. The kind of silence that comes after a bomb explodes, and you are just grateful to be alive. Emily kept looking at her mother. Susan was just walking, one foot in front of the other. They walked up the stairs to their apartment. The hallway smelled like old carpet. Susan put her key in the lock. It stuck, the way it always did. She jiggled it. The door opened. They stepped inside. The apartment was small. The furniture was old. The rug was faded. It looked different. It looked safe. For the first time in months, Emily realized her shoulders were not up by her ears. She was not holding her breath. Susan walked to the kitchen table. She sat down in one of the wooden chairs. Emily sat across from her. Susan zipped open her pocket. She pulled out the folded check. She opened it. They both stared at it. It was from the Harrison Foundation. In the memo line, Mr. Harrison had written, "Commission, portrait of Susan." The amount was $70,000. Harrison, Susan whispered. She said the name out loud, testing it. David Harrison. She stood up. She walked like she was in a dream. She went to the corner of the living room, where a very old, beige computer sat on a small desk. The machine whirred to life. It made a series of clicks and beeps. It was so slow. Susan typed the name into the search bar. David Harrison. She clicked enter. The screen slowly filled with pictures. It was him. It was the man from the park. But he was not in a plain blue shirt. He was in a sharp black suit, standing in front of a giant glass building. The building had the name Harrison Industries on it. He was in another picture, shaking hands with the governor. He was in another, older photo, with a smiling woman who had kind eyes. The caption read, David and Mary Harrison at the opening of the new children's hospital wing. Oh my, Susan whispered. Oh my word. She clicked on a link. The Mary Harrison Foundation. The website opened. It was simple. It said, helping families in medical crisis. We step in when the system fails. Susan put her hand over her mouth. She read a line out loud. The foundation has quietly covered the medical treatments for over 400 families, in honor of Mary Harrison. Emily walked over. She stood behind her mother. He wasn't just a nice man. He was not just a collector. He was a billionaire. A man who could write a check for $70,000 like it was nothing. But he hadn't treated it like nothing. He had treated them like they were important. He had called Emily a great artist. Susan clicked the mouse, and the screen went black. The computer's reflection showed Susan's face. She was crying. She finally let go. She turned and buried her face in Emily's shoulder. Emily was small, but she held her mother up. It's real, Susan sobbed. It was a strange, choked sound. It was relief. It's real, Emily. It's over. The worry. It's, oh God, baby. It's real. Emily just held her. She stroked her mom's hair. I know, Mom. I know. He was nice. He was, Susan said, pulling back. She wiped her face. Her eyes were red, but they were shining. Bright and clear. He was an angel. He was just an angel walking in the park. Emily looked at the white envelope in her own hand. She finally opened it. Inside were 5 crisp $100 bills. He said this was for me. Emily said, her voice full of awe. It is, Susan said. She touched one of the bills. You earned it, Emily. You earned every cent of it. The next morning, the sun streamed into the kitchen. Susan was on the phone. Emily sat at the table, eating a bowl of cereal. She watched her mom. Susan's back was straight. Her voice was strong. "Yes, this is Susan Walker," she said. She had a pen and paper. "I'm calling about my treatment. The one Dr. Evans scheduled." There was a pause. Emily could hear the faint, tinny sound of the person on the other end. "That's right," Susan said. "The experimental round. I need to schedule the infusion." Another pause. The person was probably asking about money. "The payment won't be a problem," Susan said. Her voice was calm. "The full amount is being covered by the Harrison Foundation. They should have already contacted your billing department. Could you please check?" She waited. Emily heard her tap the pen on the table. Then, Susan's whole body relaxed. A small smile touched her lips. Yes. I see," she said. "Yes, that's correct. So, Thursday morning? At 9. That would be perfect." "Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much." She hung up the phone. She looked at Emily. "It's done," Susan said. "The medicine?" "The medicine," Susan confirmed. "It's paid for. It's scheduled. Thursday. I just go." It was that simple. All the weeks of terror. All the forms. All the phone calls where her mother had to beg. All of it was just gone. Wiped away by one man's checkbook. "Wow," Emily said. "Wow," Susan agreed. They were quiet for a moment. The reality settled over them. It was a warm, heavy blanket. Susan looked at the clock. "You're going to be late for school." "Oh." Emily jumped up. She had forgotten all about school. It seemed like a thing from another life. "Go," Susan said, laughing. It was a real, full laugh. "Go. Be a kid. Go learn something. I'm going to clean. I'm going to clean this whole apartment. I feel like I could lift the sofa." Emily grabbed her backpack. She ran to the door. She stopped. She ran back and gave her mom a hard hug. "I love you," she said. "I love you too, baby," Susan said. "Now go." And Emily, "Yeah. Thank you." Emily walked to school. She felt light. The buildings seemed brighter. The cracks in the sidewalk were not traps. They were just lines. She saw the security guard, the one who had kicked her out. He was standing in front of his glass building. Emily looked at him. He didn't even see her. She just walked past him. She wasn't scared of him. She wasn't angry. He was just a man in a blue uniform. He was just part of the world. She had $500 in a box under her bed. And her mom was going to be okay. She had won. That afternoon, Emily came home and the apartment was spotless. The old furniture was dusted. The windows were clean. Music was playing from the little radio on the counter. Susan was humming. She was cooking. Real food. Chicken and potatoes. "Hey, honey," she said. "How was school?" "It was boring," Emily said. "We learned about fractions." "Good," Susan said. "Fractions are important." After dinner, the apartment was warm. It smelled like food. Emily cleared the kitchen table. She pulled out her sketchbook. She pulled out her box of pencils. She picked the best, thickest piece of paper she owned. "Mom," she said. Susan was washing dishes. Can you come sit? I have a job to do." Susan turned. She saw the paper. She saw the pencils. Her face softened. "The commission," she said. "The commission," Emily agreed. Susan dried her hands. She came to the table. "Where do you want me?" "Just sit," Emily said. "In the chair. By the window. The light is good." Susan sat. She put her hands in her lap. She looked a little nervous. What do I do? Should I smile?" "No," Emily said. She studied her mother's face. She was still thin. The chemo had done that. Her hair was still thin, too. There were tired lines around her eyes. But the fear was gone. The desperation. The tightness around her mouth. It was gone. She just looked like Mom. "Just look at me," Emily said softly. Emily put her pencil to the paper. She didn't start with the eyes. She started with the shape of her face. The strong line of her jaw. It was a jaw Emily had seen set in determination. She drew her hair. Not every strand, but the way the light hit it. She drew her shoulders. They were not slumped in defeat. They were relaxed. She worked for hours. Susan sat. She did not complain. She just watched her daughter. Emily drew. She was not thinking about money. She was not thinking about medicine. She was thinking about the way her mother's left eyebrow arched just a little higher than the right. She was thinking about the small scar on her chin from when she fell off a bike as a kid. She was thinking about how her mother's hands, the ones that had scrubbed so many floors, were finally resting. When she finished the face, she looked up. "Okay," she whispered. I think I'm done. For tonight. Susan stood up. She stretched. Can I see? Emily was nervous. This was different from the park. This was important. She turned the sketchbook around. Susan looked at it. She didn't say anything for a long time. She just looked. Oh, Emily, she finally said. Her voice was thick. Is it okay? It's... Susan reached out. She gently touched the paper. This is how you see me. It's how you are, Emily said. In the drawing, Susan looked beautiful. Not like a movie star, but like a queen. A quiet, strong queen. She looked like the mother of a great artist. She looked like Eliza Grant's granddaughter. Susan was crying again, but these were quiet, happy tears. Mr. Harrison is going to love it, Susan said. I have to send it to him, Emily said. His office called. They left a message. They gave us an address. For the artwork. We'll mail it tomorrow, Susan said. We'll mail it on our way to the hospital. On our way from the hospital, Emily corrected her. You're going to be tired. Susan smiled. Okay, on our way from. She looked at the drawing one more time. He's right, she said. You have a gift, Emily Walker. The chemo was hard. There was no changing that. Emily sat in the big, comfortable chair in the infusion room. The hospital had a special room for this, funded by a donation. It had soft lighting and warm blankets. It was not the green hallway. Susan sat in the chair next to her, a thin tube running into her arm. The medicine dripped, slow and steady. Emily was allowed in this time. She held her mom's hand, the one that wasn't attached to the fore. It was still scary. The chemicals were poison. They were poisoned to kill the other poison. But the other fear was gone. The cold, sharp fear of the cost. They didn't have to whisper. They didn't have to look at the clock, wondering how much this hour was costing. They didn't have to dread the mail, or the phone, or the forms. All they had to do was sit here. All they had to do was fight the sickness. You doing okay? Emily whispered. Susan's eyes were closed. She squeezed Emily's hand. I'm okay, baby. I'm just tired. But it's a good tired. It's a working tired. Emily knew what she meant. The medicine was working. They could feel it. She had brought her sketchbook. While her mother dozed, Emily drew. She drew the nurse, a kind woman named Mary Beth. She drew the fore stand, trying to make the bag of medicine look like a strange, glowing lantern. She was drawing, not to sell, not to survive. She was just drawing, because she was an artist. Weeks turned into a month. Then two. The seasons changed. The leaves in the park turned red and gold. Susan's hair started to fall out. Emily helped her shave it. They had cried. But then Susan had put on a bright yellow scarf. How do I look? She'd asked. You look like a warrior, Emily had said. And she did. The chemo was working. Dr. Evans had shown them the scans. The tumors were shrinking. They were disappearing. The word he used was remission. It was the most beautiful word Emily had ever heard. Susan was still tired. But she was laughing again. She was cooking dinner every night. She had even gone back to work, just 2 days a week. I was bored, she'd said. But Emily knew it was because she needed to feel normal. Emily was back at school. She was getting A's in art. She was getting B's in fractions. The $500 was still in the box under her bed. She hadn't spent a single dollar. It felt sacred. The portrait of her mother had been mailed. They had received a polite, formal email from the Harrison Foundation. We have received the artwork. Thank you. Mr. Harrison is very pleased. It felt finished. Then, one Tuesday, a thick, creamy envelope came in the mail. It was not a bill. It was from the Harrison Foundation. Susan opened it. Her hands were steady. Inside was a letter and a large, glossy magazine. It was the Foundation's annual report. Susan read the letter out loud. Dear Ms. Walker and Ms. Walker, we are preparing for our annual Mary's Light fundraising gala. We would like to formally request that Emily's portrait of you, Susan, be the centerpiece of our art auction. Emily's heart stopped. They want to auction my drawing? Wait, Susan said, her eyes scanning the page. There's more. Mr. Harrison feels the portrait is too personal to sell. Instead, he has requested that Emily create a new series. 5 drawings. Of the people in the hospital, the patients, the nurses, the families. He wants to show our donors the people we are fighting for. The foundation will, of course, pay for this commission. We are prepared to offer $10,000 for the series. Emily sat down on the floor. Her legs wouldn't work. $10,000 for her drawings. She looked at the magazine. She flipped it open. There, on page 5, was her drawing. The portrait of her mother. It took up the whole page. Underneath it, in small, elegant type, it read, Susan W. In remission. Portrait by her daughter, Emily, age 12. They put me in a magazine, Emily whispered. Susan knelt on the floor. She didn't say anything. She just hugged her daughter. A week later, a package arrived. It was not from the foundation. It was from David Harrison. From his private office. It was a heavy, flat box. Emily and Susan opened it together on the kitchen table. Inside, there was a handwritten letter on thick, gray paper. Dear Emily, it began. I hope this finds you and your mother well. I hear the treatment is going as planned. That is the best news I could ever receive. Your portrait of your mother hangs in my office. I see it every day. It hangs next to a portrait I had commissioned of my Mary. The two of them, they give me strength. You have a profound gift, Emily. Do not ever let anyone tell you otherwise. After we met, I found myself thinking about your great-grandmother, Eliza Grant. You captured her spirit so perfectly. I felt I had to know more about her. I had my team do a little research. It's a perk of being an old billionaire, you see. We can find things. What they found, well, it surprised me. I never told you much about my own family. My grandfather, Thomas Harrison, was a flight instructor in the war. He was stationed in Texas. He trained pilots. He used to tell me stories. He said the best pilots he ever met weren't the men. They were the women, the wasps. He said they had a fire the men lacked. He said one, in particular, a young woman from a farm, was the most natural pilot he had ever seen. He said she flew that Widowmaker B-26 like it was a part of her. He died when I was your age, but he left me his old flight logs. Emily looked at her mother. Susan's hand was at her throat. Mom, keep reading, Susan whispered. Emily looked back at the box. Under the letter was another object. It was an old, leather-bound book, a logbook, and next to it was a small, framed photograph. It was a black-and-white photo of 6 people, 3 young women in flight suits, and 3 male instructors. They were all smiling, squinting in the sun. On the far right was a young woman, her smile bright and fearless. It was Eliza Grant, and the man next to her, his arm draped casually over the propeller of a plane. He looks like Mr. Harrison, Emily breathed. He had the same kind eyes, the same set of his mouth. Emily's hands were shaking. She opened the old logbook. The pages were yellow. The ink was faded. It was filled with dates and plane numbers and signatures. Mr. Harrison had tucked a small piece of paper to mark a page. Emily turned to it. It was a page from 1944. Her eyes scanned the entries. Date, April 16, 1944. Aircraft, B-26 Marauder. Flight time, 2.5 hours. Student pilot. The name was written in careful, clear script. Eliza Grant. Instructor. The signature was a confident, strong loop. Thomas F. Harrison. In the remarks column, Instructor Harrison had written one word. Flawless. Emily looked up. The world seemed to tilt. Her mother was crying. Quietly. It hadn't been an accident. It wasn't a random billionaire. It wasn't just a lucky day. When David Harrison had stopped, he hadn't just seen a drawing of a pilot. He had seen a piece of his own history. He had seen a name that his grandfather had spoken of with respect. He had seen a connection, a debt. Emily read the last part of the letter. It seems, Emily, our families were meant to help each other. My grandfather helped your great-grandmother learn to fly. And you helped me remember what his stories were all about. It's not about the money. It's not about the planes. It's about showing up when you're needed. Keep drawing. The world needs to see what you see. Your friend, David. Emily closed the letter. She looked at the photograph of the 2 families, standing together on a dusty airfield, decades before she was born. She looked at her mother, who was smiling through her tears. Susan was healthy. She was here. And she looked at the new commission request, the one for $10,000, sitting on her kitchen table. She was not just a maid's daughter. She was not just a girl on a sidewalk. She was the granddaughter of a woman who flew bombers. She was the friend of a man who saved her family. Emily Walker picked up a fresh piece of paper. She took a sharp pencil from her box. She had work to do. And with Emily starting her new drawing, that's where our story ends. I hope watching her fight, seeing her small act of courage turn into something so life-changing, gave you a moment to pause. What were you doing while you watched? Settling in with some tea? Or just taking a quiet moment for yourself? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely love reading them. To make sure you don't miss our next story, hitting that like and subscribe button really helps. We're always trying to make these stories better, so feedback is always welcome. Thank you for sharing this time with me.